Hi Christina, how you doing? Jeremy from Motivate Me. Welcome to today's fitness assessment. Today's fitness assessment is going to include 8 exercises and a bout of walking for 30 minutes. The exercises are going to target various muscle groups around the body and give me an opportunity to determine a lot of things like your range of motion, your capability physically, how you feel generally, the effect that each of these exercises has on your heart rate, your breathing pattern, your perspiration, just your general fatigue. I want to get a sense of how you feel while conducting either body weight exercise or resistance band oriented exercise, where we're using external resistance to break down muscle mass for it to be rebuilt. We have specific goals that you and I determine, and what I would like to do is introduce a way of neuromuscularly activating these muscles that maybe we're not used to activating, so as to strengthen and tighten that core area, which is one of our goals. And you're going to see various exercises that are going to specifically target movements like the torso twist. You're going to see other movements that are going to focus on balance. All right, balance is a key component of the goal that we have of tightening our core. All right, it's a very key component. People don't realize this, but in order to have an effectively strong core, we have to have balance, because the balance muscles that fire and they neuromuscularly activate, we start to develop a connection between our brain, the central nervous system, and our peripheral nervous system, all right, that activate our muscles, all right? And so when we practice these things, our body becomes more capable and ready to do these things at a moment's notice when you're living your everyday life. And this reduces our risk for injury, especially when we're strengthening our core, which is what these exercises and many others are intended to do for Motivate Me in our program. So what I'm going to do is provide you the 8 exercises, and the 8 exercises are going to include the squats, and that's with body weight, the shoulder press with resistance band, toe touches, the kneeling torso twist and reach, the shoulder internal and external rotation, the hip manipulation, the lunge pose leg and extension, and the torso twist while lying on the back. These 8 exercises along with one walking bout. All right, so what I would like for you to do is find a safe place in the town or on your property to where you can walk at a brisk pace for 30 minutes. You can listen to music, do whatever you want to do. I would recommend taking your heart rate, resting heart rate, maybe for 15 seconds, right? So you can take your heart rate for 15 seconds and multiply it by 4. That will give you your beats per minute, okay? And then maybe measuring it after. We don't have to necessarily do this, and maybe in the future what I would like to do is maybe provide that equipment to measure your heart rate pre and post, so that we don't have to manually do it. That is one of my visions in the future, but for now, we'll make do with what we have, because it is very simple. There is nothing sophisticated or complex about being healthy and physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually, okay? There's nothing complex about it. We try to make it out to be, but it's not, and I'm going to prove that to you. So these 8 exercises we're going to do, I'm going to provide commentary and I'm going to demonstrate. And so what you'll hear me say from here on out is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate each exercise, and then I'm going to come back in later on mic'd up with commentary. I'm going to provide commentary for each exercise for as long as it takes for you to become familiar with these workouts. I have 4 basic workouts already put together. They're already recorded, and I'm going to continue to use them, and we'll use them for the first 4 weeks of our training to gain a familiarity with our equipment and the exercises that we're going to do, the program that we're going to use to improve our health, improve our metabolic health. All right, if we're breaking down muscle then has to be rebuilt, which takes energy. If we are exercising, we are forcing our body to use more energy and access more fat. All right, and this is what we want to do, and it is a slow process. If we're able to be high, like really high intensity, we make that process more expeditious. You know, we can make it happen faster. But this is a slow and steady progress towards developing new fundamentals, behaviorally speaking. All right, we take small actions and those create new behavior, and that's what we want to do. We want to create a new behavior to improve our way of life. This is very important for our age right now, especially for you at your age as a woman with children. This is very important. So I'm glad you're on board. I'm glad I could finally get this to you. And so what I'll do is I'll demonstrate the 8 exercises that are gonna precede me here, and then I'll come back in later on mic'd up with commentary. Enjoy.
Okay, Christina, so the following stretches that we're going to be conducting are going to target the sciatic area. And we're going to begin with a proprioceptive movement, and it's a simple hamstring stretch. But as you can tell, I'm using my hands to kind of pull my leg back a little bit. However, when we stretch that leg, as I switch legs here, I'm actually just using my muscles to pull my leg back. You notice that my leg's not 100% straight. That's okay. We want it to be straight, but we want to ensure that we're stretching that area. Now notice I'm pointing down. I want to point my lower back downwards into the ground. This is the tightening of our abs that we seek while we stretch. So we're stretching the sciatic area, but we're also taking the lower back and we are pushing it into the ground, all right? And this is where the tightening will come as we stretch. Moving forward to the next stretch, we just pose for 20 seconds. Right, and all we're gonna do is roll over, cross over our leg under our body. I'll go ahead and switch directions so you can get a different angle to see exactly how this stretch goes. You've got a background in these, so maybe you're familiar with these types of stretches. They're very basic. And we spend 20 seconds on each. All right, and a lot of people you'll see they might do 2 sets of each stretch. I'll tell you this, I like fundamentals. 2 sets of each stretch takes a long time, and you're going to see a lot of professionals do these. They have time to do these things. We don't have time for multiple sets of stretching. All right, we're pressed for time, so we're going to do 1 set, 20 seconds each, as we roll over onto our back. And this is a very similar position to what we just did, only we're on our backs, and we're stretching that sciatic. All right, we want to keep our head and our back straight on the ground. And that's just kind of showing how I get into the position. If you're not able to get all the way into the fetal position like I just did to begin with, notice that's a high range of motion. And if you don't have that, we can always just cross our leg over. Use that right arm to pull the knee closer to you and stretching that sciatic area. All right, and then we'll just switch legs. And I'm using that hand again. Notice my left hand with the watch. I am taking the knee and I'm pulling it towards my head a little bit. And that's stretching that sciatic nerve, or the muscles related to the sciatic nerve anyway. And then moving forward, this is the final stretch. We're going to ensure that our backs are flat on the ground and our shoulder blades, both shoulders, maintain contact with the ground. We want our backs to remain flat while we keep one leg straight and flat and twist the other leg over. You can keep your leg straight or you can bend it depending on your range of motion. We want to determine what your range of motion is and how comfortable you are with twisting your torso. All right. And in doing so, we want to be mindful of those abdominal muscles. When we are flat back, we want to ensure that those abdominal muscles in the lower back is pressing flat into the ground. And this is where we come up with our balance and our core strength and the ability to tighten those muscles up. We want to engage neuromuscularly. All right, so for the first fitness assessment exercise, we have the body weight squat. Just to give a quick demonstration as to how I'm going to move. We're going to perform 1 set of 30 repetitions. So we'll do 30 squats. All right, I want my feet shoulder width apart. I want my weight to be on my heels. When I squat, I want my knees over my toes, but not too far over. Notice I want my shoulder blades nice and tucked back, retracted. I want my back straight. Notice it stays straight even though I'm leaning over. This is to reduce the shear forces on your vertebrae. All right, now notice my knees directly over my toes. All right, I'm going to sit down to where my knees are at about 90 degrees, right there. I would like my bottom right there, my hamstrings to be about parallel to the ground. That is in between a 3/4 and a full squat, all right? Depending on our range of motion, we'll be able to perform a full squat. The knee extension, knee flexion, hip extension, hip flexion, all of these things are happening here, right? That's your hip extension right there. All right, we're hip extension, hip flexion. In doing the squat, we are introducing hip extension, hip flexion, knee extension, knee flexion, and these are strengthening your core. They're strengthening your lower body. So we want to see how many of these we can perform. We don't have to do these so quickly, but we want to perform 30 if we're able to. And we want to pay attention to how we feel. Our heart rate's increasing. We'll most likely begin to sweat. You're going to breathe a little more heavily. I want to know how you feel during these exercises. Okay, and so for the second exercise, we're going to use a resistance band. Now, I've got the yellow and black bands on. That's the heavy and the medium band. And we're going to work the deltoid, as I just pointed to. The deltoid is the shoulder muscle that lies exteriorly on the outside of your shoulder. All right, we're going to work on the shoulder muscles, the trapezius, the rotator cuff. These muscles will be worked, and we're going to work our core with this exercise. All right, so this is going to be a resistance band anchored chest press, and it's going to be an overhead chest press. So we're going to anchor the resistance band and ensure that the band has an equal amount of length on both sides. And we're going to anchor it below our knee, around our shins, and we want to ensure that, as I mentioned with the hips earlier, we can extend and flex our hips. We want to make sure that our hips are straight. All right, we are flexing those core muscles by maintaining a straight alignment, a straight posture. All right, so we want to keep our hips straight. We want to push as much in the upwards and straight direction as possible, maintaining resistance on the band itself and pressing up. All right, so we're working the trapezius, we're working the deltoid muscle, we're working the rotator cuff to a certain extent, we're working the pecs. All right, and all these are going to do is target the muscle groups to break down those muscles so that your metabolism rebuilds them even after you're done working out. And this is going to improve our resting metabolic rate and help us target fat and lose weight. All right, so I'm going to basically show from a different angle. All right, my shoulder blades are retracted slightly right there. Now, as I'm pushing up, I want to be breathing out, all right? As I'm contracting and pushing, I'm always breathing out. And we'll go over these techniques for breathing later. All right, so for this exercise, we have toe touches. Now, I'm laying flat on the ground. During this time, I certainly want to make sure that my lower back is being pushed into the ground. This is anytime we lay on our backs, we don't want an arch on our backs as much as possible. We want to ensure, especially in this position, that our lower backs are pushing towards the ground. This is the tightening of our core that we want to work on and focus on. We are neuromuscularly activating those muscles. These are muscles that we're not used to moving as much. We're not active in that way. Now, if we garden, if we do other things, certainly we're active in that way. Then we are targeting those muscles, and this is just an opportunity to strengthen them from this point. But what I want to do here is just to establish and determine what your range of motion is, what your capabilities are, so that we can gear our future exercises towards improving your range of motion, improving your ability to be mobile. All right, if we're not able to be mobile, we're not motivated to go live life and do the things that we want to do. It's kind of inhibiting. So in doing these toe touches, we can keep our legs straight, or we can bend the legs. We just want to ensure that we are bringing our hands and our shoelaces together, all right? And we wanna record how far we're able to touch. Are you able to touch your toes or your shoelaces, or are you able to touch as far up as your ankle? What's our range of motion? And that's what this is all about. How comfortable are you laying on your back, keeping your lower back and abdominal muscles engaged, right? Keeping that back, notice downwards as I'm pointing. Keep those abdominals engaged. Flex the hips, slightly flexing the knee, and there you have it. All right, moving on to the next fitness assessment exercise. We have the kneeling torso twist and reach. And what I mean by reach is we're gonna reach to our back pocket. All right, notice I'm pointing to my chin, I'm pointing to my chest, I'm rotating. I want to match where my chest is pointing with where my face is pointing. We're not gonna keep our head on a swivel, we're gonna rotate our head with our body. I'm twisting the torso, and we're engaging those obliques. We're gonna twist, and we want to check our range of motion. This is the main thing, the range of motion, but I also want to neuromuscularly activate those muscles we're not used to using. And so I wanna check your range of motion, all right? We want to keep our pelvic area pointed straight ahead, all right? We wanna try not to twist the lower extremity, rather twist the upper extremity and then pose. Notice I'm twisting and posing for a split second and then coming back. All right, and so moving forward, one of the most important exercises that we're going to do is the internal and external shoulder rotation. And notice I'm anchoring my resistance band to a soccer post, but we can use we can use this equipment indoor as well. We've been given the I Motivate Me package, and all of that equipment that facilitates that is in there. All right, so notice I'm controlling with one arm the anchored resistance band that we're not going to use, and I'm going to keep the elbow tucked into the side, and I'm going to use the other arm to pull. The rotator cuff, as I'm pointing out here, is going to be the main muscle group that we're focusing on. We're going to be internally rotating the shoulder here. I want to keep that elbow tucked as much as possible. Notice that I'm deviating there. I'm not tucking as much as I should, but I have heavy resistance on. Notice my pelvic area is pointed straight and forward. We're not moving that. The resistance band wants your body to move, and we don't want to allow it to. So we're actually going to pose while doing this exercise, and those core muscles in your hips and your abdominal areas, those are keeping your body stable and in position. All right, so we're actually working our core while doing this. Notice I switched arms, all right? I'm in the same direction. Notice I'm facing in the same direction, but I switched arms. So I went from doing an internal rotation with the right arm to an external rotation with the left arm. And now that I've done the proper repetitions, I switch arms. So I turn around and I face the opposite way, and I keep the same length for the resistance that I had for the other arm. So we're getting equal treatment for all of the muscles in both arms. Notice how I switch it up, maintaining the same resistance. I'm just switching the hands, and I can take short choppy steps to change my length. Notice how I take short choppy steps here to change the length of the resistance band, making it a little easier, more difficult. And I'm gonna keep that elbow tucked in, and I'm gonna perform an external rotation. Notice you don't see my other body parts moving, all right? We isolate them. All right, this is our bread and butter, hip manipulation. You're going to be doing this exercise a lot. This is what I do in all of my training. It doesn't matter how difficult or hardcore my training is, I always use my hip manipulation. Now, this is an abduction, what we call a hip abduction. We're going away from the midline. And in doing so, notice I'm rotating the hip. So we're gonna be working the hip rotators. We're gonna work the hip flexors, the hip extenders, all of these things. I'm pointing at everything related to the hip. This is an important and crucial balance and core strength workout. All right. So I showed you the hip abduction. Now we're gonna show you the hip flexion and hip extension. And I'm going on one foot, right? You notice the hip being flexed, but I'm going to point at the other leg that's anchored, because the most important thing about this exercise is actually the balance of the foot not moving or the leg not moving. We want to balance and fatigue those muscles that are responsible for keeping you upright. So as I'm shifting body weight with the leg that's moving, the leg that's stationary and balancing is actually working really hard to keep you balanced, because your weight is shifting from one position to another and you need to maintain balance. So what I want to do is one set of 12 each way. So I'll do one set of 12 of the hip abduction, which is here, right? So we will do 12 of these. You can move your hands. Notice I almost lost balance. You can keep your hands stationary. You can let them go naturally with the range of motion, or with locomotion naturally. You can do that. Right, so we switched. Now we're doing the hip extension and flexion, right? So we're going straight to the front and to the rear. And we're going to do 12. And we're going to maintain our balance while extending and flexing the hip. And I'll change direction here so you can get a better understanding. All right, so we're going to flex and extend, flex, extend, flex, and extend. We're extending the gluteus maximus, the butt muscle, all right? The hamstrings, the hip flexors, all of these are very important. We want to maintain that balance always. All right, the next exercise is the lunge, pose, and leg extension. I'm currently demonstrating a deep lunge. We're deep lunge position where that knee is nearly touching the ground, if not touching the ground, all right? I, however, don't like to go with the full deep lunge. A lot of folks aren't able to completely do it. That's understandable. We're trying to determine what our athletic capability is right now. What are our physical limitations? Do we have any? All right, so what I want to do is a semi-lunge. All right, so notice this lunge right here is a semi-lunge. I'm not going all the way down like I demonstrated at first. We're gonna go part of the way down. Notice the left leg. I want to keep that weight on the heel and then move it towards the toe and elevate up slightly. I'm doing a calf raise while extending the leg. When I extend the leg, I work the quadricep muscle, the thighs. All right, now I'll switch it up here. We'll go with the right leg. So the right leg's being worked, all right? This is what we want to work on, simply coming straight up. The hip flexion, we just practiced the hip flexion, we're going to be doing a lot of it, but that right leg that's pushing up, all right? That's the one I want to worry about, and we want to keep the weight on the heel and then move it towards the toe and do a calf raise. This is a dynamic movement and can be very difficult. It's a coordinated effort, so we want to see what we're capable of doing. This is a more challenging exercise. All right, and this is going to put pressure on the patella, which is the kneecap, as well as the knee joint. All right, so we want to get a good feeling as to what we're capable of, and this is a good way of doing it. If we're able to do 10 reps, and we're doing this towards the end of an exercise, you're going to find that you're going to be very fatigued, as I was just there. All right, so the torso twist while lying on the back. We've done a few torso twist type of exercises, and this one is another that we're going to do maybe once a week. It's going to be included unless we're not able to do it, which is fine. Now I have my knees bent. Notice I'm pointing down again where the lower back is. That's because we want to push down with that lower back and engage those abdominal muscles. We're doing twisting and we're bending the knees and everything, but in reality we're working those core muscles. We're going to tighten those. That's the goal. All right, now notice I'm either bending or keeping the legs straight. If the legs are straight, it's more difficult. The exercise becomes more challenging and the intensity level increases. If we're not able to do that, we need to bend the knees and perform the reps that way. And we're only doing 10. I'll probably do more than 10 just for the sake of the period of instruction, but we want to do 10 of these, all right? Nice and easy.
All right, so just to recap, we did our 8 fitness assessment exercises, and they're designed to determine your fitness level. We're assessing your range of motion, your mobility, your strength, a little bit of your strength, but your endurance. We want to see how it affected your heart rate, how your sweating was affected. Whatever the case, I want to know how uncomfortable or comfortable you were. I want to know what pain you may or may not have felt during each exercise. I'd like to know what your range of motion was. Was it too difficult to do, or was it very easy? That's going to help me determine how we can move forward and design the most effective individual training program for you. And so again, the 8 exercises, we'll be in touch very shortly to facilitate this discussion. So what we'll want to do is reevaluate our performance for the fitness assessment, and then that will give me a better understanding as to how we proceed forward in designing your program. So I hope you enjoyed today's exercises and familiarization with some of our equipment. We're going to be doing so in the coming weeks with our 4 videos that we already have that are going to be available for familiarization of our program and our equipment. So great work today, and until next time, stay motivated and do you.